3, 2, 1, boom! Broadcasting live from the center of the universe. Presenting the world's only business school without the BS. With optometrist and entrepreneur Dr. Robert Zellner and USSBA Entrepreneur of the Year, Clay Clark. Get ready to enter the Thrivetime Show on Talk Radio 1170.
Yes, sir. It's Z and Clay, broadcasting from the box in the 918. Business school and the topic today. Check the syllabus, it's getting you paid. I'm making the business boom, it's what we do. You can do it, let us show you. All right, Thrive Nation, welcome back to another edition of the Thrivetime Show on your radio. And today's show, Chup, has a potential to be fabulously fun and festive because the essence of really good comedy is where people can say, you know, that is so true.
I can relate to that.
And so I went out to Owensboro, Kentucky
You
this
had
weekend.
a typical American travel experience, didn't you?
And I went out there to help this church we work with called River City Church. Great people out there. And I went out there for the specific purposes of helping to optimize the systems in the church. I don't go there to teach theology. I don't go there to teach anything about the Bible and the practical application of that, because they have a fine leader, a great pastor, Pastor Brian Gibson, and his wife, Pastor Jesse. But they have me help them build the systems, the checklists, the workflows. And that's why, Chup, we went out to Owensboro, Kentucky.
Is it Pastor Brian and what's his wife's name? I'm sorry?
Jesse.
Jesse. So it's PB and J?
Oh, wow.
Pastor
Wow.
Brian
Wow.
and Jesse.
Okay, so we went
sorry,
out there.
I just had that thought.
Hello, Pastor Brian. Hello, Pastor Jesse. So we go out there, and we left on Friday. We had 2 o'clock. We had an elephant in the room meeting with our team. So at 2 o'clock, the meeting ends. The meeting starts at 1, ends at 2 p.m. And if you can follow me there, Thrive Nation, at 2:15, we drive to Tulsa International Airport to fly to Owensboro, Kentucky. And you have to fly from Tulsa to Dallas, and then from Dallas to Evansville, which is not actually in Kentucky. I believe Evansville, I think that's in Indiana. And we had to fly to Evansville, and then from there you'll drive about an hour to Owensboro. So we get there at about 2:45, and the fun begins because my wife and I and our 5 kids were going through the airport security. And there was a woman behind me in the airport security line. They ask you to take your shoes off and put your stuff in a bag, and you start taking off your belt. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, and Paul, perhaps I'm the only person to do this, but there's somebody there who works there, a member of the Transportation Security Administration, who begins to roll their eyes at my 13-year-old daughter, as she attempts to put her stuff in the tray. Because we have 5 kids. But immediately rolls her eyes.
Maybe she has an eye problem. Maybe she needs to call Dr. Z, or maybe...
Have you guys, am I the only one who's seen this?
No, I think it's a move. I think it's, I've seen it many times.
So, I mean, as soon as we have 5 kids, we're going through the line, and immediately, as soon as we start to go through the line, I have 5 kids, and they're all well-behaved. They're putting their stuff in the buckets, in the bins, those gray bins, going through. And the TSA worker, the Transportation Security Administration worker, begins to... apparently, just roll their eyes like, unbelievable, because we have 5 kids. And so, that's just, in my mind, to be expected. And today's training, what we're calling today's show is Don't Run Your Business Like an Airport. They are a government-subsidized industry that can afford to lose money. But let's just start right there. Chup, am I the only one who you go through the TSA and you think to yourself, I wish we could get Quick Trip employees doing the checkout? They're certainly more detailed, they're more accurate, they're kind. Or can we get some Chick-fil-A employees?
Oh, the
here?
Chick-fil-A. I had an experience once in the same scenario that you had, and one of the people called me and my cousin Jerry's kids. And I was
through the Transportation Authority.
Yeah, because we were just standing there because, like you said, people, you're getting your shoes off, you're trying to, and he's like, we hear him say to the other, wish Jerry's kids would hurry up over here. And I'm like, what is it? What?
So again, I'm just saying this because as I go through airport security, every single time I go through, because to fly out of Tulsa, you usually have to connect to multiple cities. So you usually go to Dallas and then somewhere else, or you go to Denver and somewhere else. But it seems like if I'm going to fly somewhere, I'm guaranteed to have 4 flights, and of those 4 flights, there will be 1 to 2 super sarcastic Transportation Security Administration officials. It just seems like that's the deal. So then I board the plane, and as I'm on the plane, I'm just going to say I was not on Southwest Airlines. I'm going to keep saying that. But as I board the plane, I'm not on Southwest Airlines, and the seat that I get assigned, Paul, is 11B, which is in the middle.
In the middle, right?
And so I'm in the middle, and I start thinking things like, you know what? This plane it weighs a lot of money. So I look it up, and I discover, or weighs a lot of weight. I mean, this plane weighs a lot of weight. The plane is a 71.35 metric ton Boeing 737. So it's 71.35 metric tons. And I start to think to myself, how is it possible that they have the technology needed to keep this plane in the air, but not the technology needed to keep the plane cool? Now, I will say, when I fly Southwest, if I do 100 flights with Southwest, 98, 99 of them are going to be a pleasurable experience. But because I was flying to this small town in Kentucky, I knew I'd have to fly with the other guys. And it seems like there are certain airlines, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but every single time you fly, you know that if you're going to check your bags, you'll never see those bags again.
That's right. You know, why is that, Clay? I mean, you go into one convenience store, they ought to be able to, Quick Trip is so much different. Southwest is so much different. Why? I mean, they're in the same business. Why can't they figure it out?
And I want to make today's show super actionable for all the listeners. So I want you to think about this there. In 2016, January 26, 2017, Southwest Airlines posted their 44th consecutive quarter of profits, okay? They've been do you understand that Southwest Airlines has been profitable every quarter, even with the recession, over and over and over and over and over? These guys are profitable year after year after year after year. But yet, Delta Airlines in 2016 lost a $450 million bet on fuel prices. And American Airlines, every 4 or 5 years, Paul, since you've lived in Tulsa, do we not do a bailout for American Airlines
Absolutely.
or United? Or have you thought about that?
Yeah, threaten layoffs, and we have to bail them out. And so what's not right?
So think about this for a second there, Chuck. The year that Southwest Airlines was founded was, let me pull this up here on the show notes there. Southwest Airlines was founded in 1967. And I want to make sure that we're getting this. For 44 consecutive years, not quarters, they have posted a profit. 44 consecutive years. But do you realize that since I've lived in Tulsa, since attending ORU, I can't even count the number of bailouts that American Airlines has received? Paul, has this ever blown your mind that it seems like every other airline gets a bailout, but Southwest does not? Has this blown your mind?
You know, it has, because I don't understand, just like I don't understand why every accountant isn't proactive. I just don't understand it. Why don't they take and be forward-looking and help clients steer their business? Why don't the other airlines, secret shop Southwest and then duplicate what they do? They found a pattern. Why doesn't it work?
And I'm going to explain to you why they don't. I've determined this.
I want to know.
They're going to get a bailout. When was the last time that Hood CPAs got a bailout because your service was so bad that you got a government bailout in order to stay afloat?
Well, we're still waiting for the check, Clay.
And when I built DJ Connection, the customer gets to vote with their dollars. When I built DJConnection.com, anything I've ever built in my life, Elephant in the Room, the Men's Grooming Lounge, Dr. Robert Zeller and Associates, every business that we're a part of, the customer gets to vote with their dollars, except for in the aviation industry. That's why you cannot run your business like an airport or a government-subsidized airline if you want to make it. So what I did is I was going through all the calamities that happened during my trip. I thought about, what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and write down all the crazy things that happened. And then I'm going to make sure that we teach the Thrivers. And that a lot of these things are common sense, but I think if we're not aware of them, then we can't improve upon them. So let's just go through the calamities so far. So far, Chuck, when I go through the Transportation Security Administration, when I go through the TSA inspection, I ran into, out of the 5 people I talked to, there's a front desk guy, super sarcastic. He goes, "Sir, you went to the wrong line. You'll need to go to that line." So that was one.
Idiot.
The next line, the person was nice. Then when I go through the conveyor belts, the person telling my kids what to do through the line was not nice. So that's 2 out of 3 not nice. The guy where you put your hand up in the air and then they scan around you. You put your hands up in the air and they scan you when you walk through that revolving scanner thing. That guy was nice. So we're 2 out of 4. Then the 5th guy, he says, "Sir, I'm going to have to pat you down. I'm going to use I'm going to use the outside of my hand, and I'm going to need to pat down the groin area." And I said, "Well, I would prefer if you did."
Hey-oh.
Just joking with the guy?
Yeah.
Not only does he not smile or not laugh, he is pissed. So now we got
real funny, sir.
Right. So 3 out of 5 people are pissed. So I got 3 out of 5 of the employees that are pissed. Now, I've been to Quick Trip over and over. I probably go to Quick Trip every day.
A million times.
I'm not exaggerating. I probably go to Quick Trip every day.
I do.
And when I go in there, I can count on one hand how many times I've dealt with a unpleasant employee since 1999.
Yeah.
So
easily.
this is 2018. This means I've been to QTs for 19 years, and I can count on one hand the number of times I've had a bad experience, and every other time, thousands of times, Quick Trip delivers excellent service.
I haven't been to Quick Trip. I mean, I haven't been to Chick-fil-A as much as I have Quick Trip, but I don't think I can count one bad Chick-fil-A employee or interaction experience that I've had at Chick-fil-A.
So when I sit down on my row,
Right.
it's seat 11B in the middle. It's hot, like a sauna hot. Like, I'm not exaggerating. It's probably, I don't know, probably 90, maybe 85 degrees on the plane. Now, I took off here on Friday, so the weather wasn't 90, but they made no announcements. They didn't say, ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the heat here. We're just going to be... No, they taxied out. You get on the ramp. You walk down the little jet bridge. You get onto the plane. They taxi out. They hop on the mic, and they say, ladies and gentlemen, we're slightly delayed. They don't make any other announcements for 35 minutes. I am literally sweating.
And everybody's just breathing.
And the guy next to me, he's a great guy, not a small guy. And his body heat is like making me hot, and I am just dripping at this point. And so I immediately begin to sweat. And I thought about, you know what, Thrive Nation? Let's audit our businesses today. Let's think about our businesses. And do our employees, do we antagonize 3 out of 5 customers? Do we have do 3 out of 5 of our employees antagonize people? So Jack Welch, if he were here, the number one CEO of all time, arguably, who grew GE by 4,000%, he says you need to hire people with energy, people that can energize others, people with an edge to make the right call, the tough call, and people who have that ability to execute and to get their stuff done. And I can say for TSA, they missed on all of those marks, because even the person that was nicer to me had no energy and kept yawning.
That's because they were asleep.
So this is what Herb Keller, the founder of Southwest Airlines, says to do. He says, don't hire for skills. You hire for attitude. You can always teach skills. This is the guy who has run the only airline that has produced a profit for 44 years in a row. Do you realize it's like Southwest Airlines versus the Cleveland Browns? Every single year, the other airlines lose. Now, Chuck, during the show break, I would like for you to look up the annual losses of the United Postal Service and the losses in the past decade of Delta and United and American, because I want to give them a fair shake. But I would love to know how much money these other airlines are losing. And when we come back, we're going to talk about segment number 2, how to create a wow experience. And if you listen to this show and you happen to work at United or Delta or American, please mystery shop Southwest and fix it. It's unbelievably, consistently terrible. Stay tuned. It's the Thrivetime Show on your radio as we talk about how not to run your business like an airport or a government-subsidized airline. Stay tuned. It's the Thrivetime Show on your radio. I remember my days back in the dorm room, tuned to the gloom like the temple of doom, overwhelmed with the doubts that try to consume my hope for the future that I could pursue. But from the mountaintop now I can conclude that you have what it takes if you want.
Attend the world's best business workshop led by America's #1 business coach for free by subscribing on iTunes and leaving us an objective review. Claim your tickets by emailing us proof that you did it and your contact information to info@thrivetimeshow.com.
All right, Thrive Nation, welcome back to the conversation. It is the Thrive Time Show on your radio. And for those of you who are just now tuning in, we're talking about the importance of not running your business like an airport or a heavily subsidized government airline. And just to give you an example, we have the airlines, Paul, when you and I want to get on a plane and we want to fly down to Austin, Texas. You could fly Southwest, right? You can fly American, Delta. Who do you typically fly with when you go down to Austin or other? When you fly, who do you typically fly with?
Probably American.
American. Okay. Now, if you had to say you're going to have 10 flights, you're going to fly. What percentage of the experiences are bad? If you had to fly 10 flights.
Well, I would say in the last 5 years, I'd say 80 to 85% were terrible.
Okay. And when you say terrible, like what are the things that in your mind would define terrible?
Oh, I mean, like you get to Dallas and the weather's fine and your flight is delayed or canceled and, sorry, we can't get you out till tomorrow, but it's the weather's fault, so we don't have to give you anything. Or, they just, like you say, they try to save money by not firing up the engines early enough, and you sweat like a pig in there. And so I usually have to take a change of clothes if I'm flying down there for a day meeting.
Yeah, because you'll be sweating the whole time.
You just smell like sweat when you get there.
I went to Owensboro to help out with a church, one of our clients we work with called the River City Church in Owensboro, Kentucky. And I went there to help them build some operational workflows and systems. Basically, they have a great pastor, Pastor Brian and Pastor Jesse, and a great team of people that are really wanting to serve the community. All they need is just to nail down a few checklists and systems. It's operational, but the spirit to treat people kindly is there. Someone should write that down. The spirit to treat people kindly is there. And so I'm helping build systems, but I'm not there trying to train attitudes, right? I'm just trying to build systems. Now, Chuck, think about these industries and these businesses where they're losing money. So how much money does the United Postal Service lose? When you did a little research there during the break.
So in 2012, according to a Fortune.com article, they lost a whopping $15.9 billion.
Think about this for a second.
How is that possible?
Think about this for a second. The United States Postal Service will lose $15 billion. That is far more than the profits of UPS and FedEx combined. I don't know if you guys are getting this. What happens is when the customer doesn't have choices, the government is subsidizing a failing business model. So again, if it was up to the market, the customer would simply choose another alternative. But they can't because there's only one United Postal Service. I'm not sure if the listeners are aware of this, but did you know that American Express used to be the Postal Service? Did you know this, Chip?
No, I did not.
Yeah. American Express used to be the Pony Express. And the government came along and made it illegal for American Express to carry your mail because they wanted to improve the quality. And so like government does when they move into any industry, they screw it up.
They do.
And so what happened is they screwed it up. And so now what happens whenever there's a failing industry, if it's too big to fail, if it's a huge business that's bombing, what will happen is the government will get involved and they'll subsidize the business. So, Chip, how much money did American Airlines lose in 2012?
It looks like in 2016, in the second quarter, their net income plunged 44%.
And how much did you have a record loss on there? Did you have a record of a loss?
They had it was their parent company, so I didn't want to mix all that up.
Well, let me give you an example. In 2012, April 19th, CNN reported that American Airlines lost $1.7 billion. Do you get what that would mean if they weren't subsidized? It'd mean American Airlines is out of business. And it wouldn't mean that people like Paul and I wouldn't want to travel. It would mean that an investor like Apple, an investor like Jeff Bezos, an investor like Elon Musk, or anybody out there who is an investor of a profitable business. Now, someone might be saying, well, Elon Musk loses a lot of money too. We can get into that when that's a separate show. But anybody who knows how to run a profitable business could say, you know what we're going to do? While your business goes, while you go ahead and take your airlines into bankruptcy and settle your debts, and then we'll come in and buy it and we'll fix it. And then Southwest Airlines could have bought the failing airlines for pennies on the dollar, just like people do with foreclosure homes, and they could have made it better. But instead, the government subsidizes the poor performing business, and so year after year, they can eke out a terribly performing existence. So as I was trying to fly to Owensboro, Kentucky to help this church grow, I decided to log the issues with my trip onto my notepad as a form of cathartic therapy so my brain would not explode.
A release.
And so when I got on the airplane, and about 4:35, I realized there's no air movement. And they're not serving alcohol trays while we're waiting.
Come on.
So I can't escape from my current reality. I can't. I'm just sweating. I can feel the sweat dripping down my lower back as this heavier guy next to me is breathing and talking. And as the announcements are made with 100% commitment to apathy, I realize that nobody's listening. And in the event of an occurrence of an actual emergency, no one would know what to do. And that the guy who's sitting in the emergency exit row for us would definitely not be able to help us exit the plane any more than I would be able to help fill in for Tom Brady in the event he gets injured. Because this is how the announcements are made. This is how they're made. Tell me if you can relate to this, Chup. This is how the announcements are made. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for boarding flight headed to Dallas, Texas. We'll be driving at in case of emergency. And it's just this monotone. And use a seatbelt across here. Exit. And no one's even. They're not even saying it in a way that conveys. Now, let me tell you what. If I was making an announcement, and my announcement that I was making could result in the death of many people if they don't know what to do, I would say this, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be, if I can get your attention here for just a second. I know you've heard this, but I'll make sure we get it. That's an exit row over there. And if we have like a bad situation happen, I need somebody who's able-bodied to be able to take this. Are you, sir, right there? Are you willing to do that? I mean, and by and large, Southwest Airlines does it. They have fun with their announcements.
I've seen their videos. It's awesome.
They actually have a good time. But yet the airline that I was on, it was like apathy. It's like they didn't even care, and they didn't even want to put the energy needed. Paul, they're not even putting the energy needed to get my attention.
No, it's because you take the profit motive out of a business, and when you have a subsidized business, the profit motive is gone. They don't care. Okay, well, if we fail, it's kind of like so you've got a test tomorrow at school. And if I fail, guess what? The teacher's just going to give me a B anyway. So why study? Why try? Why put in the effort? And this country was built on free enterprise, Clay. I totally agree with you. If they let the post office fail, somebody's going to step in the next day.
Yes.
And going to provide a better service for probably the same amount of money.
Or less.
And make money at it and save the money that the government's having to put into it.
As an example, Whole Foods was struggling to make a profit, and so guess who got involved? Jeff Bezos. And you know what he did? He's making it more efficient. Mm-hmm. These are things that can happen, but you've got to let a business fail if they're not performing well, and the market will fill the need. And so as I was sitting there on the runway, waiting for an hour for the plane to take off with no air conditioning, thinking about it's a 71-ton airplane that they have the technology needed to keep it in the air for over an hour or two, but yet they don't have the technology or the will to turn on the air conditioning. So if you're listening right now and you own a business, I want to ask you right now, how well are you and I doing at wowing our customers? When we come back, we're going to talk about the specific steps needed to create an experience that wows, as opposed to creating an experience that irritates your passengers.